Hello there, good evening. Welcome to Look North, our top story tonight. A year on since the devastating flooding caused by Storm Babet, residents in Chesterfield have again been preparing for the worst.
I've no future. How about that? What can I do? I've just no future. I say I just do not know what to do. We're getting no help from anybody.
We'll have the latest from Paul on if there'll be any let-up in the rain this autumn. Also tonight, the families on a North Yorkshire estate who say they've been forced out of their homes.
And we're shake, rattle and rolling our way back to the past. This tram, which once plied the streets of Leeds, is back on the rails for the first time since 1957.
And meet the gorgeous new arrivals at the Wildlife Park near York.
Well, after the awful weather on Monday and Tuesday, how nice to have blue sky in this picture from Wakefield, and there is more fine weather to come. Join me for that very happy, positive forecast.
Hello there, thanks for your company this Wednesday evening. Believe it or not, it's a year since Storm Babet caused devastation in our region. One woman drowned in her own home in Tapton Terrace in Chesterfield, and many residents were forced to leave their homes. Now, a year on, the fear of flooding has returned. 2 flood warnings were issued earlier this week in the town following heavy rainfall. Now, while the threat has now receded, the fear hasn't, as Mark Ansell reports.
It's a year on from the flooding that devastated Tapton Terrace in Chesterfield. One resident here, Maureen Gilbert, drowned. How high did the flooding go a year ago?
At least above that.
A year on, and David has only just been able to move back into his home after it was renovated. David and his neighbours live with the constant threat of being flooded again.
I've no future. How about that? What can I do? I've just no future. We're getting no help from anybody.
On Monday, when the rain fell all day, David feared the worst. He's desperate to leave, but knows no one would want to buy his home.
Worried, I could have sat down and cried. You know, because, well, what I did then, I got family around. I've got 2 sons, they all come down here. And when you go in the house, you'll see, we moved everything upstairs, which is the 3rd time since 2020.
Thankfully, the houses here on Tapton Terrace narrowly avoided being flooded on Monday. But just look at how close they are to the River Rother, just a few yards away from their homes. Lorna sleeps in a caravan in her garden because her house is yet to be fully renovated. The fear of flooding has taken over her life.
It's horrendous because you just don't know when it's going to happen. Every time you rain, you're frightened. I mean, as you know, we lost our neighbour last year. She drowned in the floods. We're frightened every time it rains. Nothing's been done with the river. It just makes you crazy inside. And you just can't seem to get out. You feel like you're drowning with no water. That's how I feel like I'm drowning every day because I'm coming back to the same thing every day.
In a statement, Derbyshire County Council says it's continuing to work to minimise the effects of flooding and the damage it causes. Meanwhile, the Environment Agency says it's taking a number of steps to reduce the risk of flooding from the River Rother and the Hipper, including a new flood management project. So Lorna, on Monday, you ended up emptying your belongings and putting them in the car.
I did. This is my daughter's car. It's the only tow vehicle that we've got.
Regardless, residents here feel trapped and fear it's only a matter of time before the floodwater engulfs their houses again. Mark Ansell, BBC Look North, Chesterfield.
Gosh, you can see how it's taken over their lives, can't you? Paul is here with us. Paul, the last 2 weeks we've seen record rainfall across the globe. Do people who live in flood-prone areas just have to get used to the fact that they might flood again?
Well, I think it's got to be a concern, and looking across the world, I mean, you look what happened in Europe 2 weeks ago. Rainfall records across Austria, Slovakia, Hungary didn't just beat the previous records that have stood for 200 years, they were smashed. You look at the hurricane that's affected Florida to the Carolinas, massive rainfall totals, way off the chart compared with records, again, that goes back to the 1800s. And look at Woburn in Bedfordshire, 5 times more rainfall in some places across central southern England. And the physics, it's pretty simple stuff. If you raise global temperatures by 1 degree Celsius, physics tells us that that body of air can hold 7% more water vapour. And when the dynamics of the atmosphere are right, that translates into heavier rainfall, and the trend is really clear.
And so autumn, how's that looking?
This autumn, well, the Met Office's long-range forecast does suggest there's a much higher chance of heavy rainfall, so it looks like the season will be wetter than average yet again. But
we did have sunshine today, which is a positive thing. We'll come to that later. Thanks, Paul. Next tonight, 13 families on a North Yorkshire estate have been told they must leave their homes they've lived in for years because the landlord, a private property management company based in London, wants to sell up. Half of those who were living in the former MOD homes at Catterick left after finding private accommodation elsewhere, but the others were given a Section 21 no-fault eviction notice. It's left one family of 6 living in a one-room in a homeless centre. Philippa Gamer reports.
So, top right's my daughter's old bedroom, where we lived there 13 years. Loved it.
For Kirsty and her family, living on Essex Close was everything they wanted for their children's upbringing. After 13 years and more than £97,000 paid in rent, the family were given a Section 21 notice and vacated the property in June this year. They're now living in this room: mum, dad, brothers and sister, 2 adults and 4 children. Every week, Kirsty, who also works locally, bids for council properties, but nothing has come up that's suitable for them so far.
We've got a 4-bedroom need due to me having 3 boys and 1 girl. And we haven't had a 4-bedroom property come available for us to bid on, so they've only been 3-bed ones. Any of the 3 beds I have bid on my bid's been skipped because we'd be classed as overcrowded in a 3-bed.
You got it? Claire is a single mum who's lived on Essex Close for 7 years. She's also being evicted, but is currently still in her property and hoping to find something soon for her and her 2 children.
So I'm eligible for a 2-bed because I've got 2 sons. So I think in the past year since I've been bidding, I've seen 2 properties in and around this area that are 2 beds. So I've only been able to bid twice in the past, maybe like 6 months to a year now. And I get it, I have to move, and the fact that my community's here, I don't have family anywhere else, displacing me and my family would just be awful. I wouldn't be able to work, my kids would have to move schools.
Essex Close is in Catterick Garrison, the largest British Army garrison in the world, and is home to thousands of Army personnel and their families.
When military people come here, they come out the military and they get awarded a Gold Star Award to get a house. So what they do is then they come to the council and we have to house them as a priority. That means we have a constant flow of people coming from the military wanting council houses that we don't got.
Annington, the property management company who own the houses on Essex Close, have decided to sell 13 homes on the estate as part of their long-term business strategy.
I mean, I'm eternally grateful for the fact that we've not ended up in a tent on the street, but we are struggling.
The government told the BBC that they're in contact with North Yorkshire Council and expect them to support the residents to secure appropriate longer-term housing. Philippa Goimer, BBC Look North, Catterick Garrison.
Well, North Yorkshire Council says it's working with the families affected to provide alternative accommodation and has so far helped 3 of 6 families in need. Others have secured their own private rental homes. Now, there were significant time lapses between treatment for a man who went on to kill his parents during a psychotic episode, a coroner has said. An inquest has been looking at how Brian and Mary Andrews were killed by their son Duncan at their home in Sheffield 2 years ago. He told healthcare professionals something bad was going to happen. Ollie Constable reports.
I love my parents right to the end. I wish this had never happened. That's what Duncan Andrews said today about the 2 people he killed back in November 2022. Over the last 2 days, we've heard about his care, when he heard voices or felt paranoid after he had seizures brought on by his epilepsy. The court behind me heard how a referral to a specialist early intervention service was denied. A doctor gave evidence to say Andrews was suffering with clear psychotic symptoms. If these psychotic episodes were identified as being persistent, he may have been given different care. In November, during a psychotic episode, his parents, Mary and Brian Andrews, were stabbed to death in their home. There was a police investigation, with Andrews pleading guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. From a secure hospital, he watched the proceedings this week on a video link. He heard from the coroner, who said there were significant time lapses between treatments. She said, had there been regular and appropriate interaction between services, it's possible that treatment could have been given. Outside court, the family said they tried for years to try and get their brother the care he needed.
Almost 2 years on, and it has been a long, frustrating and mentally draining battle for us to get this heard. It has not been helped by the lack of communication and transparency from those organisations in which all of us place so much trust. Our parents provided a safe and loving environment in which to grow up. They were caring members of the community with close family, friends and neighbours who loved them, and their loss is an enormous hole in our lives and everyone else's.
The coroner said a prevention of future deaths report would now be issued, looking at how services at Sheffield Health and Social Care shared information. The Trust says some changes have already been made. Duncan's sisters said their parents sacrificed their lives so he could get a diagnosis. Ollie Constable, BBC Look North in Sheffield.
Let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom now. Underwater searches have been carried out following the disappearance of a woman from North Yorkshire. 34-year-old Victoria Taylor from Malton hasn't been seen for 3 days. North Yorkshire Police said extensive searches, including on riverbanks, were being carried out, and the focus of our activity is within the Malton and Norton area. Anyone with any information is being asked to contact the police. A 14-year-old who hurled burning missiles and stones at police outside a hotel housing asylum seekers has been sentenced. He was one of 5 teenagers who appeared at Sheffield Youth Court today in connection with the rioting outside the Holiday Inn in Manvers back in August. 4 boys, aged 14, 17 and 15, all admitted violent disorder and were handed a year-long referral order. A 16-year-old girl also pleaded guilty to violent disorder and is due to be sentenced later in October. And one of the last surviving Windrush passengers, Alfred Gardner, has died at the age of 98. His children have told the BBC they were so proud of everything that he achieved for the city of Leeds. Alfred, who was born in Jamaica, was a World War II veteran who went home after the war only to return to Leeds on the Empire Windrush in 1948. 3 months later, he set up Britain's first Caribbean cricket club in the city. He was always regarded as a pioneer and went on to meet members of the royal family, including King Charles. Let's move on to sport now. Last night's busy Footy League programme produced plenty of goals in the matches involving our 8 teams on the field. I'm afraid both Huddersfield and Harrogate Town suffered defeats, but with a look at all of the more positive outcomes, here's Paul Ogden.
Rotherham United winning away is not something we've had the chance to celebrate much recently until last night. The Millers' first league win on the road since November 2022 came very late on at Cambridge by a single goal to nil, scored in injury time by Sam Nombe. Barnsley fans who stayed until the end at Oakwell also did right for what turned out to be a 2-2 draw against Wycombe. Stephen Humphreys had drawn the Reds level at 1-1, but for Wycombe to regain the lead with 5 minutes to go. Barnsley battled again and forced an equaliser from Mark Roberts in the 89th minute. In the Championship, Leeds United showed similar determination to earn a point from a 1-1 draw at Norwich, whose early penalty was matched by Laji Ramazani's equaliser on the hour for Leeds. In League Two, there were more late game-changing goals to enjoy. A Harry Clifton strike for Doncaster Rovers secured all the points against Barrow to end Rovers' recent winless run. Chesterfield, as we expected, remain a formidable opponent since their promotion and will be sorry not to have won down at Bromley. The Spirites led 2-1 at the break from Will Griggs' double, but Bromley forced a 2-2 draw in the second half. And at Morecambe, Bradford City, having conceded an own goal after just 5 minutes, eventually pounced in the 88th through Jack Shepherd to force a 1-1 draw. Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United both play tonight in the Championship. Paul Ogden, BBC Look North.
Now, it's one of the glitziest evenings in the sporting calendar, and today the BBC is launching its Unsung Hero Award as part of the Sports Personality of the Year. This year, the regional and national Unsung Hero competition was won by Des Smith for his work at the Sheffield Caribbean Cricket Club. We'll hear from him in a moment, but first let's remind ourselves of the moment he found out he'd won.
And the Unsung Hero Award goes to Desmond Smith.
What an incredible night. What was it like to win that award?
It was an incredible night because I had no idea at all that I would have won this. And so when it was mentioned, when my name was mentioned, I just couldn't believe it. You could tell I really just couldn't believe it. I know some people thought that I knew about it, but I had no idea at all. It was a total surprise, and it took such a while to even comprehend that I could have won something like this. But again, it wasn't just for me. I think it's just for all the volunteers who work day in, day out, constantly, day in, day out, in communities, in organisations, in sports clubs, to make life better for everyone and enjoyable for everyone.
And what does it mean for that hard work that you've put in over the years to be recognised in something like this?
Well, since I've actually won the award, within a couple of weeks' time, after the award, I received a phone call and an email from the English and Wales Cricket Board. And they said, look, Des, we will support your project. And, and they have done. And in fact, for the last 7 months, the ECB, which is the English and Wales Cricket Board, have been funding the work around getting together all the information for a plan application. And we're at a stage now whereby that plan application will be submitted to the Sheffield Local Authority within the next week or two. So really something have happened.
So this isn't just about recognising your efforts as a volunteer, but by winning it, it's helped you raise the money you need for a new pavilion.
Well, exactly. I mean, to be honest, we have been working for quite a while to raise enough support just to get the plan application off the board. And that would have taken us 3 years. Now it's taken us 7 months. So it's really just catapult the entire process forward.
Very briefly, for anyone who's watching who wants to nominate someone, why should they do it?
I think they should do it because there's some excellent work being done around, and we all know people doing good work, and I think they ought to be, if you're out there and you know somebody who's doing excellent work, nominate them.
Des, congratulations to you and the team. Thanks for coming in. So, if you think you know someone as fabulous as Desmond here, then this is how you get in touch and how you nominate someone. All of the information is on your screen now, bbc.co.uk/unsung hero. The closing date for nominations is midnight on the 30th of October. Get nominating and good luck. We're moving on to trams now, and the debate around them in Leeds has been going on for decades. They were first taken off the streets in 1959, and a tram car, which was a familiar sight back then, has just returned to the rails at the National Tramway Museum. Beautiful, isn't it? The Bluebird, named after its distinctive colour, was a one-off which delighted passengers in the 1950s. Tom Ingle will be checking your ticket.
Hold tight, please.
It was the shape of a future which never quite arrived. But the Bluebird, built as a riposte to those who said it was better by bus, was immediately popular. When this tram first rolled out of the depot in the early 1930s, what was the reaction to it?
Well, the press wrote of Rolls-Royce level of comfort for passengers, and the sign on the side says comfort for reading and smoking. So it was really advertised as a luxurious vehicle.
So, but of its time, no smoking these days.
No smoking allowed these days, absolutely not.
And I'm not sure if I had a Rolls-Royce that was bouncing like this, I'd keep it. I might send it back to the Leeds.
Yes, although it's fairly comfortable, I think.
The Art Deco lines of this tram, which once graced the streets of Leeds, were to have been repeated 100 times over, but in the end, it was the only one of its type ever built. Now, I don't know if you're ahead of me here, but last time I checked, Highbury, Westminster, the Walworth Road and New Cross Gate were not in Leeds. And that's because this tram has another history. It was actually the capital who commissioned her.
It's goodbye to the old clangers.
But then they turned their back on trams. With Leeds looking to replace the older members of its fleet, they snapped her up in the 1950s. Now devoid of blue and renumbered, she was soon off to exotic termini like Briggate and Lawnswood. But in 1957, she reached the end of the line. After going on display back in London, the Bluebird then flew north again to the National Tramway Museum in Derbyshire. It has taken £500,000 and a 10-year project to finally undo the best part of 7 decades stood still. Once again, heads are being turned to the delight of the team who made it happen.
One of the guests that we had was a chap who'd actually been a conductor on this tram in Leeds, because particularly during the summer, they got university students in as relief crew, and we were very pleased to have him along to actually get a ride on it.
Bluebird returns to the rails just as West Yorkshire has finished a brand new consultation about bringing light rail back to Leeds and Bradford. So who knows? Maybe this future is on the way after all. Hold tight, please.
Tom is certainly in his element there. This is more my thing. Time for a little factor, or look at the size of that. It's huge, isn't it? 4 meerkat pups have just been born at Askham Bryan Wildlife Park. The parents, named Lenny and Crookshanks, were only introduced to the park in July. Abby Giola has been along to meet the new arrivals.
As any new parent knows, toddlers are a handful. You can't take your eyes off them for a second. You're constantly feeding them, so it's nice to have a helping hand.
Hi everyone. They can be a little bit naughty, so when you're putting food out for them, they can possibly barge the parents out of the way so that they can get the best piece of food. They mess about with each other, they play, they have rough time with each other, and it's just so much fun.
So this is as close as we are allowed to get to the meerkats. That's Mum on sentry duty. She's keeping a watchful eye on the 4 little babies. Now they're 13 weeks old now, and they're just behind the fence and they're all burrowing and playing away. Now Mum was pregnant for just 2 months, and the hope is that this will be the first litter of many for a growing clan of meerkats here at the Wildlife Park. The pups were born blind and hairless and only emerged from their burrow last month. It's too early to tell if these pups are male or female, but their personalities are developing.
We definitely have some that are more confident. So we've got one individual who will spend more time alone than with the parents like some of the others will, and we've also got one meerkat which is so clingy to Crookshanks that literally won't leave her side and will fight her other siblings off to try to get more attention. Go on, you two.
No toddler tea time battles here. The meerkats enjoy a diet of mealworms, fruit and veg. Mum and Dad seem to be coping well with parenthood, and the kids look happy too. Abby Giola, BBC Look North, York.
Oh, they're very cute, aren't they? And they'll be very pleased. We've had a little bit of sunshine on a rainy day today.
It reminds me of a comparison website, and I can't remember what it is. But it,
well, we won't mention it with the BBC.
It just shows how advertising works, doesn't it? But yeah, absolutely beautiful. And we'll start with a bit of blue sky there, and of course, you'll know what cloud that is, won't you, Amy? No.
Cumulus lingus?
Nearly.
Oh, really?
After cumulus, you know,
oh, there we go.
There.
Good guess.
Beautiful day. It was nice to see some sunshine because it's been rotten along the coast these last couple of days. And look, an unusual sight in York. The sun's out, and there's actually a few people milling around. So yes, we're on the cusp of 3 fine days. How about that? If you've got any pictures you want to send in on X, Instagram, or the BBC Weather Watcher website. So tomorrow will be mostly dry with some sunshine. There's always a chance in this sort of setup that we see the odd shower drifting in from the North Sea. But the main thing is high pressure keeps things settled. It's keeping the Atlantic weather systems out at bay for now, but it looks like eventually they'll break that high down and come across as probably Saturday night into Sunday. So it means at least Saturday should be a fine day with some sunshine as well. So the weather's been coming in from the northeast. Again, you can see the clouds have been blown in by that northeaster, but it's been well broken. Most of us, as we've seen on those pictures There's been some sunshine around for many of us. So through this evening and overnight, the odd shower coming in from the North Sea, but it looks essentially dry with long clear spells, and it looks as though it's going to be a lot cooler than last night. We stayed in double figures last night, but I think tonight, especially across the Pennines, we could be down to 5 or 6 degrees, 7 in the towns and city centres. So the coast, a lovely day tomorrow. Let's hear it for Scarborough. Filey 5:25, Bridlington 5:36, the high water times tomorrow morning. So it's a mostly fine day. If you just look very carefully, there's a hint that 1 or 2 blue showers will push in from the North Sea, but they're very much few and far between. Most of us will remain dry, and with that sunshine we'll see temperatures pleasant for early October. 15 Celsius, that's 59 Fahrenheit, with a light east or northeasterly wind, and we'll keep that fine weather going through Thursday evening, so it's fine and largely clear, which will lead us into a chilly night on Thursday night, perhaps a touch of ground frost. We could wake up to some fog patches first thing Friday morning, particularly in the Vale of York, but that fog will thin and break. Friday, on the whole, looks a nice day, as does Saturday, but at some point Saturday night into Sunday, low pressure takes over, and that will set us up for a very unsettled week next week with showers or longer spells of rain. That's the forecast.
Frost already? Is that rare for September?
No, well, it's October.
Oh, sorry, of course it is October.
No, not really.
Only just. All right, thanks for that. That's it from us. Corinne here with your late news. Bye-bye for now.